had no panties on at dinner with his friends. He called out my bad intentions. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't expect to be caught, or to even allow a little flirting get out of hand. That little flirting has cost me my relationship, and I am in deep regret. To make things clearer, I had been dating my boyfriend for 2 years, and he wasn't exactly the best-looking guy. I mean, he wasn't tall or muscular or anything like that. He had zero charisma, like none at all. He couldn't charm people, and he didn't even try to dress well. His clothes were old and boring, like someone's grandpa might wear. And on top of that, he didn't have much money. He had a small job that paid just enough to get by. I don't even know why I started dating him. Maybe I just felt sorry for him, or maybe I thought I could change him into something better. I can't really remember now. I used to nag him all the time. Like every single day, I would tell him what was wrong with him. I told him to try harder at work, to get a better job, and to stop being so lazy. And when I said those things, I didn't say them in a nice way. I wasn't kind or patient. I was mean. I told him he needed to grow taller, like that's even something he could do. Now that I think about it, that was probably the worst thing I could have said to him. I don't even know why I said it. It's not like he could control his height, but I just felt so annoyed all the time. For 2 years, he stayed the same. He didn't get taller, obviously. He didn't get a better job either. He just stayed the same quiet, boring guy he had always been. But then one day, everything changed. He got a new job. And this wasn't just any job. It was a big, fancy job at some company I had never even heard of. Suddenly, he was making more money in 1 month than he used to make in a whole year. I didn't even believe him at first. I thought he was joking. But then he showed me his first paycheck, and I almost fell off my chair. After that, he started changing. He bought new clothes, and they weren't boring or old-fashioned anymore. They were stylish and expensive. He started going to the gym every day, and his body changed so much. He looked stronger, like one of those guys you see in magazines. He got a new haircut too, and it made him look like a completely different person. And for some reason, his new job seemed to make him more confident. He didn't seem shy or awkward anymore. Other people started noticing him too. Everywhere we went, girls would stare at him, and they weren't just looking. They were smiling and trying to talk to him. I hated it. I mean, I was happy that he was doing better, but I also felt scared. I thought he might leave me for one of those girls who actually treated him better. After all, why would he stay with me? I was just the nagging girlfriend who always complained and never appreciated anything. But he didn't leave me. He stayed. He even started buying me expensive gifts, like handbags and jewelry and other things I had always wanted. He took me out to fancy restaurants that I could never afford on my own. He even talked about taking me on a trip to another country. I should have been happy. I should have been grateful. But I wasn't. Instead, I found new things to complain about. If he bought me something, I'd say it wasn't the right color or the right brand. If he took me out to eat, I'd say the food wasn't good enough. If he tried to plan something nice for us, I'd say he was doing it wrong. I don't even know why I did that. Maybe I just couldn't accept that he was changing so much. I remember one time when he came home with a new jacket. It was really nice, like something a model would wear. And instead of telling him he looked good, I told him it was too tight, and he looked silly in it. He didn't say anything back. He just looked at me like he was sad or disappointed. Another time, we were out shopping, and I saw this really pretty dress that I wanted. It was expensive, but I knew he could afford it now, so I asked him to buy it for me. And he did. He didn't even hesitate. But later, when we got home, I told him I didn't like the way it fit, and I wanted to return it. I could see he was getting tired of my attitude, but he still didn't say anything. I kept pushing him, though. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see how far I could go before he snapped. I kept finding ways to make him feel bad. I'd tell him he was only doing well because of his job, and not because of who he was as a person. I'd tell him his money might have gotten taller, but he didn't. And honestly, that was one of the cruelest things I ever said to him. He just stood there, staring at me, and I could tell I had hurt him. But I didn't care. At least I thought I didn't care. One day he called me and asked me to come pick him up from work because his car had broken down. At first, I didn't even answer. I saw the call but ignored it because I was still lying in bed, and I didn't feel like getting up. Then he called again, and I finally picked up. He sounded frustrated, and I could tell he really needed help, but I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in bed and relax. It wasn't like I never helped him, though. I mean, he had bought me a car for my birthday. My whole family kept telling me how lucky I was to have someone like him. They kept saying how thoughtful and generous he was. But I didn't really see it that way. To me, it felt like something he was supposed to do. I mean, he had all this money now, so of course he should spend some of it on me. That's what boyfriends are supposed to do. Anyway, I told him I didn't want to get up and go all the way to his office. He started getting annoyed, and we ended up having a big fight over the phone. He told me he really needed help, and I told him to stop whining and asking for favors like a little girl. I called him a demanding grouch and said he was being dramatic. I could tell he was getting upset, but I didn't really care. Eventually I got up and went to pick him up, but I didn't do it because I felt bad for him or wanted to help. I did it because I didn't want to hear him complain about it later. And as I was driving to his office, I kept thinking about how unfair it was that I had to do this. I felt like he owed me something for making me go out of my way. When I got to his office, I parked the car and waited for him to come out. I was still angry, and I planned to give him a piece of my mind when he got in the car. But then I saw him walking out with 3 other guys. At first I didn't think much of it. I just thought they were his co-workers or something. But as they got closer, I started to notice how they looked. They were tall, like really tall, and they were handsome too. They had sharp features and confident smiles, and they were dressed in suits that made them look like movie stars. I couldn't help but stare at them. I wasn't expecting his co-workers to look like that. I had always imagined his office full of boring, average-looking guys, but these 3 were anything but average. My boyfriend walked up to the car, and I rolled down the window. He smiled at me, but I barely noticed. I was too busy looking at the other guys. He introduced them to me, and they all smiled and said hello. I remember their names: Kent, Will, and Darren. Each one of them looked even better up close. Kent was the first to speak to me. He said it was nice to finally put a name to the face, and I could feel my cheeks getting warm. His voice was deep and smooth, and his smile was so charming. For a moment, I forgot why I was even there. I forgot about being angry or annoyed. The other 2 guys were just as impressive. Will had this quiet confidence about him, like he didn't even have to try to be cool. And Darren was the kind of guy who seemed like he could make anyone laugh. They were all so different, but they all left an impression on me. As they walked away, I couldn't stop watching them. I didn't even hear what my boyfriend was saying because I was too busy thinking about how amazing his coworkers were. They were nothing like him. They were tall and handsome and confident, and they looked like they had their lives together. I sat there for a moment, feeling confused. I had been so mad when I came to pick him up, but now all that anger was gone. I couldn't stop thinking about those 3 guys. They had completely changed my mood, and I didn't know why. After that day at his office, something changed in me, but not in a good way. I couldn't stop thinking about his co-workers. They were so tall and handsome, and they carried themselves with this confidence that my boyfriend didn't have. I started to compare him to them, and every time I did, I felt annoyed. Why couldn't he be more like them? Why couldn't he act cool or look more charismatic like they did? I couldn't let it go, so I began using his friends as examples every time we talked. I would say things like, didn't he notice how much better they were? They were taller, funnier, and just better overall. I didn't just think these things in my head. I said them out loud to him. And I didn't say it in a kind or constructive way. I was cruel. I made it sound like he was less than them, like he didn't measure up. He didn't argue with me, though. He just listened and stayed quiet, which honestly made me even more frustrated. I wanted him to defend himself, or at least try to change more, but he didn't. He just kept being himself, and for some reason, that made me bitter. One day, my little sister and a friend of mine came over to hang out. My sister was younger than me, but she was smart and funny, and she always had a lot to say. My friend was someone I had known for years, and we usually got along well. We were just sitting around talking about random things and laughing when my boyfriend came back home unexpectedly. He had already left for work earlier that morning, but he forgot something and had to come back to get it. He walked in, smiling, and said hi to all of us. He looked calm and confident, like he was in a good mood. He grabbed whatever it was he needed, and then he left again, just as quickly as he had come in. The moment the door closed behind him, my sister and my friend both started talking about how great he looked. They were saying things like how handsome and stylish he had become and how cool he seemed now. They kept going on about it, saying they couldn't believe how much he had changed. I didn't see it, though. I didn't see what they were seeing. To me, he was still the same boring guy he had always been. Sure, he had new clothes and a better job, but he was still the same person underneath. I couldn't understand why they were so impressed by him, so I told them they were wrong. I said their eyes must be faulty, or maybe even blind if they thought he was all that. I didn't just disagree. I made it sound like they were ridiculous for even thinking those things about him. They both looked at me like I was crazy, but I didn't care. I felt like they didn't get it. They didn't see what I saw when I looked at him. They didn't see all the ways he wasn't good enough. It was a Saturday morning, and my boyfriend was at home working. He had his laptop on the kitchen table and was typing away, focused on whatever he was doing. I didn't really care what it was. I just knew he was busy, which meant I didn't have to talk to him or deal with him much. I decided to go to the store to get some groceries, since the fridge was almost empty. I grabbed my keys and headed out without saying much to him. I wasn't really in the mood to have a long conversation or explain where I was going. He didn't even look up from his laptop when I left, so I didn't bother saying goodbye. When I got to the store, I wasn't in a rush. I walked down each aisle slowly, taking my time and picking up things we needed. I wasn't really thinking about anything in particular, just going through the motions of shopping. But then, as I turned the corner into the snack aisle, I saw someone I recognized. It was Kent, one of my boyfriend's coworkers, the tall, handsome, confident one who had left such an impression on me the day I met him. He was standing there, looking at a bag of chips like it was the most important decision in the world. I almost didn't believe it was him at first, but then he looked up and saw me. He smiled, and I smiled back. My heart skipped a little, and I felt this weird excitement bubbling up inside me. I hadn't expected to see him here, and I definitely wasn't prepared for how good he looked in his casual clothes. We started talking. I told him I was just shopping for groceries, and he said he was doing the same. His voice was just as smooth and charming as I remembered, and I found myself laughing at his jokes and smiling at everything he said. Then, out of nowhere, he offered to pay for the groceries I had picked up. I was surprised, but also kind of flattered. I didn't need him to do that, but I wasn't about to say no either. So I let him pay. I felt a little guilty, but at the same time, it felt nice to have someone like him doing something for me. After we checked out, we walked out to the parking lot together. He asked which car was mine, and I pointed it out. We stood there by my car, just talking. The conversation flowed so easily, and there was this undeniable chemistry between us. I felt a little giddy, like a schoolgirl with a crush. He made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, and I didn't want the moment to end. I started flirting with him, throwing out little comments and jokes to see how he would react, and he flirted back. It felt like a game, but it was also thrilling. I didn't care that it was wrong. I didn't care that my boyfriend was sitting at home, working hard to provide for us. At that point, all I cared about was how Kent made me feel. Before we parted ways, we exchanged numbers. I didn't even think twice about it. It felt so natural, like it was the next logical step. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just harmless fun, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. As I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about him. His smile, his voice, the way he made me feel. I felt a mix of excitement and guilt, but the excitement was stronger. I told myself I deserved to feel good, to have someone make me feel special. After that day at the store, things with Kent and me didn't just stop. We started chatting. At first, it was just small talk, little messages here and there about random things. But soon, it became more than that. The conversations grew longer and more personal, and I found myself looking forward to hearing from him. He made me feel important, like I mattered in a way that my boyfriend didn't. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't care. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that it wasn't like I was doing anything serious. But deep down, I knew I was playing with fire. And honestly, I liked it. I started finding excuses to be around Kent. My boyfriend didn't really like driving. He only did it because he had to. So, I began offering to drop him off at work and pick him up afterward. At first, he seemed surprised by my sudden kindness. I had never gone out of my way to do things like this for him before. But he didn't question it too much, and I didn't give him any reason to. In his eyes, I was improving. He probably thought I was finally trying to show him some care and appreciation after all these years of nagging and complaining. He even thanked me a few times, and I just smiled and nodded like I deserved it. But the truth was, I wasn't doing it for him at all. I was doing it for Kent. Every time I dropped my boyfriend off or picked him up, I hoped to catch a glimpse of Kent. And not just Kent, but his friends too. Darren and Will were just as tall and charismatic as Kent, and I couldn't get enough of being around them. They made me feel alive, like I was part of something exciting and new. Whenever I saw them, I would linger a little longer, trying to keep the conversation going. I laughed at their jokes, even when they weren't that funny. I smiled more than I usually did, and I made sure to dress a little nicer than usual, just in case they noticed. This went on for a while, and my boyfriend didn't suspect a thing. He thought I was being supportive and thoughtful, but I was really just using him as a way to get closer to his friends. I felt a little guilty about it sometimes, but not enough to stop. Then one day something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was waiting outside my boyfriend's office to pick him up when Kent, Darren, and Will came down. They told me that my boyfriend wasn't coming home that night because he had some big project to work on and would be staying late at the office. I smiled when they told me, but not because I felt bad for my boyfriend. I smiled because it meant I had the night to myself, or so I thought. Before I could even think about leaving, they asked me if I wanted to go to a party with them. The invitation caught me off guard, but I didn't hesitate. I said yes right away, barely stopping to think about what I was agreeing to. The idea of going to a party with them felt exciting and dangerous. It was like stepping into a world I didn't belong in, but one I desperately wanted to be a part of. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I didn't care. All I knew was that I wanted to go. It felt like the most exciting thing I had done in a long time, and honestly, I couldn't wait to get started. I told them I'd leave my car there so my boyfriend could use it whenever he was ready to leave work. It seemed like a thoughtful thing to do, but really, I just didn't want to drive myself. Will offered me a ride, and I didn't even try to hide how happy that made me. The idea of sitting in his car, talking to him, and soaking up his attention felt like a thrill I couldn't resist. I climbed into the passenger seat, feeling like I was stepping into a new adventure. On the way to the party, we talked about everything and nothing at the same time. Will had this way of speaking that made everything he said sound so interesting. I couldn't help but hang on to his every word. He talked about his life, his hobbies, his dreams, and even the most ordinary things he said sounded magical to me. The more he talked, the more I found myself wanting him. It wasn't just his looks, though those were definitely part of it. It was the way he carried himself, the confidence in his voice, and the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. It was intoxicating. When we finally got to the party, he parked the car and got out quickly. Before I could even open my door, he was already there, helping me out like some kind of gentleman from a movie. It was such a small gesture, but it made me feel special in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. The party was everything I hoped it would be, and more. The music was loud, the lights were flashing, and there were people everywhere. It was the kind of chaos that made you feel alive, like you were part of something bigger than yourself. I took it all in, and for a moment I forgot about everything else. There was alcohol flowing freely, and the smell of it mixed with the perfume and cologne of everyone around me. The music was so loud that you could feel it vibrating in your chest, and people were dancing like they didn't have a care in the world. I told myself that this was my kind of place. It felt like I belonged here, like I was finally where I was supposed to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I wasn't just someone's girlfriend or someone's nagging problem. I was me, and I was having fun. But deep down, I knew I was crossing a line. I knew that leaving my car and going off with my boyfriend's friends wasn't something a good girlfriend would do. And yet, I didn't care. All I cared about was the way Will looked at me, the way the music made me feel, and the way the night seemed to promise something more. That night, I partied harder than I ever had before. I didn't hold back. I drank so much that I lost count of the glasses, and I danced like I had nothing to lose. The music was loud, and it felt like it was pulsing through my veins. I let myself get carried away, and it was like nothing else mattered except the fun I was having in that moment. The floor was crowded, but I didn't care. I danced everywhere, moving from one group of people to the next. And of course, I found myself dancing with all of my boyfriend's friends. First, it was Darren. He spun me around and we laughed like we were sharing some inside joke. Then it was Will. He had this smooth way of moving, and I couldn't help but get caught up in his energy. And finally, it was Kent. Dancing with Kent was different. There was something about the way he looked at me, something that made my heart race. He put his hands on my waist, and I felt a shiver run through me. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop. I let myself lean into him, and we danced like we were the only two people in the room. The party went on like that for hours, and I didn't even think about my boyfriend once. It was like he didn't exist. All I could think about was how alive I felt, how much attention I was getting, and how much fun I was having. Eventually, the party started winding down, and people began leaving. I realized I didn't have my car since I left it for my boyfriend, but I didn't feel like worrying about that. Kent offered to give me a ride home, and I said yes without hesitation. As we drove, the car was quiet, except for the sound of the engine. I felt the alcohol buzzing in my head, and I leaned back in my seat, feeling a little too comfortable. Kent's hand brushed against my thigh as he shifted gears, and I didn't move away. His hand stayed there, resting lightly on my leg, and I felt my heart start to race again. It was like all the rules had been thrown out the window, and I didn't care about the consequences. I told myself it didn't mean anything, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. When we got to my house, Kent parked the car and turned to say goodbye. He leaned over and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and something inside me snapped. I turned my head and kissed him on the mouth instead. For a moment, he looked shocked, like he couldn't believe what had just happened. But then he smiled, and I could tell he liked it. He didn't say anything, but he told me he'd call me later before I got out of the car. I walked into my house, my heart pounding and my mind racing. I knew I had crossed a line that I could never uncross, but I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I felt excited. It was like I had unlocked something new, something dangerous and thrilling, and I didn't want it to end. The next morning, my boyfriend came home, looking tired but happy. I pretended like nothing had happened the night before. I smiled at him and asked if he was hungry, and he just shook his head. It was like he was in a good mood despite everything, but that didn't last long. He got quiet as he sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. I could feel his energy shift, and I knew something was up. Then he looked at me, and his face was serious. He asked me what I had been doing at the party. I froze for a moment, then played dumb. But he wasn't asking just to ask. He had proof. Someone had sent him videos of me dancing wildly, laughing too loudly, and acting like I didn't have a boyfriend at home. He asked me what I was thinking, and his tone wasn't angry. He was clearly hurt. That made it worse, honestly. But instead of apologizing, I got defensive. I told him he didn't control me, that I was allowed to have fun. I said he should stop being so uptight and focus on himself instead of worrying about me. Then I walked away before he could say anything else. Later that day, I got a text from Kent. He asked if I had fun last night, and I felt a little thrill run through me. I told him I did, and that it was nice to see him and the others. Before I knew it, we were chatting nonstop. And it wasn't just Kent. Will was messaging me too. Our conversation started off harmless, but they quickly got wild. We talked about everything, and nothing was off limits. They made me laugh, and they made me feel good in a way my boyfriend didn't. It wasn't right, and I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't stop. I told myself it was just chatting, that it didn't mean anything, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. One day, Kent messaged me and said they were having a company dinner. My boyfriend had mentioned it too and asked me to come with him, and I had agreed. But now, the idea of going had a whole new appeal. I wasn't going for my boyfriend. I was going to see Kent and Will. That same evening, while chatting online, Kent, Will, and I started playing Truth or Dare. It was just a silly game at first, something to pass the time, but it quickly turned into something else. Kent dared me to do small things, like send a funny selfie or tell him a secret. I played along because it was fun and exciting. Then I dared him to send me a picture of his browser history, just to mess with him. To my surprise, he actually did it. It was nothing special, but it made me laugh. I was starting to enjoy how bold and carefree our conversations had become. But then it was his turn to dare me. He told me to come to the company dinner without wearing any underwear. I stared at the message for a long time, my heart racing. I knew it was wrong, but the thought of doing something so daring and rebellious gave me a rush. The night of the company dinner finally came. I felt a mix of nerves and excitement as I got ready. I couldn't stop thinking about Kent's dare. It was risky and thrilling, and part of me wanted to back out, but another part of me craved the rush. In the end, I decided to do it. I convinced myself it was harmless fun, just something to make the night a little more exciting. My boyfriend and I were ready to go to the party. He seemed happy as we got into the car. He smiled and told me how much he appreciated me coming with him. I nodded, pretending to listen, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about Kent and how he would react when he saw me. When we arrived at the restaurant, it was already packed. Everyone was dressed up and chatting, and the room buzzed with energy. My boyfriend introduced me to a few of his co-workers, and I smiled politely, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was scanning the room, looking for Kent, Will, and Darren. It didn't take long to find them. They were sitting at a table near the back, laughing and joking. Kent's eyes lit up when he saw me, and I felt a spark of excitement. Will waved, and Darren gave me a nod. My boyfriend led me to our seats, and as luck would have it, we ended up sitting across from them. The dinner started off fine. Everyone was talking and laughing, and my boyfriend seemed relaxed, but I could feel Kent's eyes on me. It was like he knew I had gone through with the dare, and to show that I didn't chicken out of the dare for sure, I opened my legs for him to take a good look, and every time I looked up, he was watching me, a small smirk on his face. I couldn't help but feel a little proud. Will and Darren joined in too, making jokes and keeping the mood light. I laughed along, but my boyfriend started to notice. He caught Kent staring at me and down my legs more than once, and I could see the irritation building in his face. Then it happened. Kent made a bold comment, to back up his eye looking where they shouldn't. The statement was something flirty and a little too personal. My boyfriend froze, his face turning red. He didn't say anything right away, but I could see the anger boiling beneath the surface. Without warning, he grabbed my arm and pulled me out of my chair. Everyone at the table stopped talking, their eyes wide with shock. My boyfriend didn't care. He dragged me out of the restaurant and into the parking lot. Once we were outside, he let go of my arm and turned to face me. He looked hurt and furious, and I could tell he was struggling to keep his emotions in check. He asked me what I was doing. I first tried acting like I didn't know what he was talking about. He stated how I was flirting with Kent with my eyes, and mentioned that I was opening my legs for Kent and all his friends to see. I went quiet, and he asked me if I was even wearing any underwear. I didn't respond. That was when he caught on. He asked me to look him in the eye and tell him that I was wearing underwear. I couldn't answer. He scolded me, and I was shocked, and in a frantic response I told him the truth, that I wasn't wearing any. His spirit broke. He asked me why I was acting like this, and if I even cared about him anymore. Instead of apologizing, I snapped back. I told him he wasn't the boss of me, and that he needed to stop trying to control my life. I said I was just having fun, and that he was overreacting. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I didn't stop. That was the moment he gave up. He looked at me with a mix of sadness and disgust, and told me he was done. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there alone. Update. A month has passed since that night, and everything is different now. My boyfriend, or rather my ex-boyfriend, broke up with me. He didn't just break up with me, he completely cut me out of his life. It was like he erased me. I didn't see it coming, even though I should have. The first thing he did was take back the car he had given me. I loved that car. It felt like a piece of him, like proof that he cared for me, but now it was gone. I had to take the bus everywhere, and I hated it. He also told me to move out of his house. At first I thought he was bluffing, but he wasn't. I packed my bags and left, not knowing where to go or what to do. That was bad enough, but then I found out something worse. He's dating my little sister now. My little sister. I couldn't believe it when I heard. At first I thought it was a cruel joke, but it wasn't. I saw them together, holding hands and smiling, and my stomach dropped. I felt so angry and betrayed, but I couldn't say anything. What could I say? He didn't belong to me anymore, and he seems happier with her. She was always nicer and more respectful. The worst part is that she's happy. She looks at him the way I never did, like he's the best thing that ever happened to her. And he looks at her the way he used to look at me, like she's his whole world. It hurts so much to see them together, but I know I brought this on myself. After he broke up with me, I started dating Kent. It happened fast, too fast. I didn't even take time to think about what I was doing. I just wanted to fill the emptiness. At first it felt good. Kent was charming and fun, and he made me laugh. But that didn't last long. Kent was an unfaithful jerk. Within a week, I found out Kent had been cheating on me. He didn't even try to hide it. I saw the texts on his phone and the way he acted when he thought I wasn't looking. When I confronted him, he laughed and told me I had no right to complain. He said I was lucky he was even with me. Kent is nothing like my ex. He's harsh and cold, and he doesn't care about my feelings at all. If I try to talk to him about something that bothers me, he shuts me down. If I try to give him advice or share my thoughts, he gets angry. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time, scared to say the wrong thing. Looking back, I realize how good my ex was to me. He was patient and kind, and he always tried to make me happy. I didn't appreciate him when I had him, and now it's too late. He's moved on, and I'm stuck with someone who doesn't care about me at all. I hate myself for what I've done. I had everything, and I threw it away for nothing. My ex was better than all of his friends, and I was too blind to see it. Now he's happy with someone else, and I'm left with nothing but regret.